Hey, I'm Neil. Welcome to Petrogy. This video is released to patrons on Patreon on Sunday, October 27th. 10 days on the road, 17 states, 88 hours of driving, 4,700 miles, 33 fuel stops, 7 hotel nights, and 2 nights sleeping in the Jeep. The primary objective of the road trip was to meet up with a good friend from the Navy and check out Expo East. The secondary objectives were to test out the Jeep's remote office and sleep systems, explore the Gulf Coast, and relocation areas of interest. The Jeep ran flawless. First day of working remote was a challenge. I forgot to factor in the most basic variable. I had power figured out, internet connection, and workspace for conference calls. I've been traveling for work since 2008, and I cannot believe I overlooked the most basic: time zone adjustments to scheduling. For those of you interested in my extensive research on relocation areas of interest, I will post a follow-up video to this one. The remainder of this video will be my state-by-state and day-by-day findings and impressions from the road about the Gulf Coast and relocation areas of interest. Saturday, October 5th, I left the Phoenix area, headed south on I-10. Between Phoenix and Tucson, traffic was very congested, as I expected it would be. Even past Tucson, still a lot of congestion until I got out to about where the turnoff to Tombstone is. Coincidentally, the furthest east that I have been on I-10 is that turnoff to Tombstone. South and eastern Arizona is definitely an area that I want to explore more. Very interested in spending a couple nights in the Chiricahuas and some of those areas. I was also pleasantly surprised down here in this area. Stopped here for a gas stop, and as you can see, I'll share some pictures of this area. I was very surprised how lush and green it was on Arizona standards. This is the area between Benson and Wilcox. Definitely an area that I want to explore more. It's definitely off the beaten path, a little more remote. The only downside is that it's within 100 miles of the border. So then you have to worry about the customs checkpoints and things of that sort. But otherwise, definitely want to explore this area. As you can see, I really didn't cover a large area of New Mexico, so I'm not going to cover that. El Paso was a very large city, as I expected it would be. A lot of traffic, took a long time to get through, a lot longer than I expected, which is pretty much the rule. As you go through Texas, everything takes longer than expected. After El Paso, I rolled out and then I rolled into the Fort Stockton area for the night, found a hotel with bringfido.com, and we bedded down for the night. Fort Stockton is a nice area. I would say this is about where in West Texas, where you're far enough away from El Paso that things are nice and spread out. Definitely remote areas. So Saturday, the 6th of October, we traveled from Phoenix to Fort Stockton. Took about 11 hours. Almost 700 miles. Sunday, the 6th of October, we traveled out of Fort Stockton and we covered 800 miles in a little over 14 hours between Fort Stockton and Hammond, Louisiana. Just outside of Fort Stockton, in this area, as you can see, this area is pretty remote, mostly rural. I would say mostly ranches and oil derricks. Between Fort Stockton and just the outskirts of San Antonio, I would say nice area, pretty remote. Could be an area for more exploration. From the outskirts of San Antonio, pretty much through San Antonio, Houston, all the way up until you just pass the New Orleans area, congested. Definitely not an area that I'm interested in exploring or anything. Monday, October 7th, after struggling with morning meetings, the time zone change, and the difficulty in getting a late checkout, decided to cover 8 hours instead of 4. The original plan was Monday and Tuesday, 4 hours each. So I packed in 8 hours, covered about 400 miles. Mississippi and Alabama were definitely the highlights. I would definitely revisit Mississippi and Alabama again. I've always liked Alabama. Mississippi seems very similar. Right before crossing into Mississippi, we crossed the Pearl River, leaving Louisiana and crossing the Pearl River. Could see the bayous and those areas around the Pearl River. Definitely an area worth exploring more. Would like to get more towards the coast and explore some of the beaches on a much slower pace someday. After crossing the Pearl River later in Mississippi, we ran into some weather. It was raining so hard that I almost had to pull off. Though we passed through Pascagoula, Mobile, and we swung down into Pensacola at sunset. The communists in Pensacola definitely don't like to have dogs on their beaches, but we were finally able to find a dog beach and enjoy the sunset before getting back on the road. Pensacola was probably more of a curiosity than anything. I had spent some time there for aircrew training when I was in the Navy. And then after Pensacola, we rolled up to Montgomery, Alabama. Once up in Montgomery, Alabama, we decided to hunker down for a day, use the freezer, replenish our ice that had been depleted miserably in Texas, and just spend 2 nights there instead. That way I could get a long day's work in on Tuesday, and then we could hit the road on Wednesday morning and get some serious miles in. On Wednesday, the 9th of October, covered about 550 miles in about 10 hours. I would say between Montgomery and Atlanta, the closer you get to Atlanta, the more congested, the worse the traffic gets. And the congestion and the traffic pretty much carried all the way up through Charlotte, up until right around Statesville. From Statesville up to Roanoke, Virginia, the drive was really nice. It was pretty rural. This is an area that I would not mind exploring. The closer you get to Roanoke, the more East Coast-ish it feels, especially the attitudes. At the hotel in Roanoke, there's definitely a lot of folks that had just rolled in from Baltimore. Also ran into a really nice gentleman who was a ship architect from Brazil. We had a good chat. I really enjoyed my time down in Brazil, and we had some good times chatting about it. Thursday, October 10th, just finished out the drive. I think it was 96 miles. Probably took maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours if that. Primarily just get from Roanoke in the morning. Wanted to grab some fresh frozen dog food from the Natural Dog on Brambleton Avenue in Roanoke. Then we headed up to the Overland Expo. We set camp on Thursday and settled in. Not my usual camping style, if you will. It was more of a festival type camping. Could hear the neighbors snoring, and every morning everybody was cooking bacon. On Friday and Saturday morning, we wandered around the Overland Expo. We did notice that on Saturday there were a few more exhibitors than there was on Friday. Down below in the description you'll find a link to the Overland website if you'd like to check it out, but there's a good recap on there of the Overland Expo East 2019. Looks like they've recently added a Mountain West, and this spring I was out to Overland Expo West. I will say I enjoyed the East a little bit more than the West. The East seemed to be a little more DIY, a little more down to earth. The West had more of a California type feel to it, if you will. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad. On Saturday the 12th of October in the afternoon, covered about 425 miles in about 9.5 hours. Got to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Along the way I was quite impressed with Western Virginia. The drive in Western Virginia was really nice. The following pictures are roughly from this area, roughly. Let's see. Again, it was great driving weather in a great area. Really enjoyed the drive through Western Virginia. Definitely a place I would like to check out some more. Could definitely spend some time here exploring. A little further down the road, here's some more pictures that I took. Not sure how the trout fishing is out this way, but was definitely wishing I had my waders and could check this one out a little better. After that stop, continued through West Virginia into Kentucky. And on down to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Was much more impressed with Kentucky once we got free of the Lexington area and as we got closer to Elizabethtown. Sunday the 13th of October, I was really excited to get on the road to see Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, east of Tulsa, and the Ozarks. In particular, Mountain Home, Arkansas. You'll notice there's more waypoints popping up. This was primarily because I started marking Jeeps. The thought process being areas where there's more Jeeps, I've typically observed that those are areas I really want to explore more. So we pulled out of Elizabethtown, Kentucky, came down into Tennessee for a little bit, and then as soon as we crossed into Missouri, into that little section that dips down, it was night and day difference. I really enjoyed the drive from Kentucky, even in through Tennessee, but it was like night and day difference as soon as I crossed the Mississippi. As soon as I crossed into Mississippi, I was noticing a lot more tornado damage in the fields. You've got the rows of trees. Every couple fields, it seemed like where those rows of trees were, they were sheared off at the top. You can tell that there had been some tornado activity on and off over a long period of time. Got into Kennett for a fueling stop. Not impressed at all. There seemed to be a lot of homeless people in the area. It just seemed really run down. Just wasn't real impressed with Missouri. That short little jaunt through there. Once I got through Missouri, right around Black Rock, Arkansas is where it definitely turned into, there wasn't as much tornado debris, and I was definitely in the Ozarks. The Ozarks seemed to be like their own state, if you will. Definitely night and day difference. After Black Rock, we worked our way up to Mountain Home. And I really enjoyed the drive all through the Ozarks. There wasn't a single straight road. Everything was real windy. It was definitely real rural. A lot of flea markets along the road. Not a lot of big towns. Mountain Home probably being one of the largest ones. And that wasn't even really that big as it was. You can see this area here where I detoured off. Let me change to an aerial view. And this is where I took an interesting picture. I'll share that with you. And then further down here by Jeep 19, some more pictures. This detour was interesting. Mostly dirt road except for this area. Before I got to this area, I had to cross maybe a 10-15 foot section of river, just driving through the river. And then I had to stop for some cows along the way. And this was the next farmstead, if you will, up the road. I'm sure it was only paved just so that they didn't have to deal with the dust. Further into Mountain Home, you can see the big fishing lake. There was a resort nearby that I was so tempted just to stop and spend a couple days here. This is definitely an area that I definitely want to explore. I could definitely spend a couple weeks here and really enjoy it. After Mountain Home, pretty much headed north. Crossed into Missouri again, still in the Ozarks. The Ozarks might as well be its own state as far as I'm concerned. Did not seem like I was in Missouri at all. Working my way up towards Springfield, where this red dot is where it pretty much returned to normal. This is right in the area of outside of Springfield, between Springfield and Rogersville, Missouri. Congested traffic, not in a rural area, definitely lack of common sense. That sort of an area. Continuing through Springfield into Joplin, definitely in the land of the nut jobs in Joplin. So this is what I was greeted with when I was gassing up in Joplin. And then once I went into the store to use the restroom, everybody was just all in a tizzy and trying to indoctrinate everybody into their socialist ways, if you will. Bait what was on the truck and everything else, and I just wanted to get in and get out of there as fast as I could. The congestion and the crazies continued out of Joplin all the way down to Tulsa, to be honest. And on top of it, you can see the green line. It turned into expressways. Really don't like toll roads. Worked my way through Tulsa. Finally through Oklahoma City. Ended up stopping in Clinton, Oklahoma. Did I mention I really don't like toll roads? Left Clinton, Oklahoma, rolled on through Texas and Amarillo into New Mexico, cleared New Mexico after Albuquerque, and into Arizona, and on my way home. 14 hours, covered about 870 miles. Between Clinton, Oklahoma and the border with Texas, pretty much grassland. Next major thing that you see is going to be Amarillo. And then after that, it's pretty much the same, pretty much grassland all the way to New Mexico. Here are some more GoPro pictures from New Mexico, as you can see from the aerial view. New Mexico is a little more arid. The vegetation changes up a little bit, kind of transitions in that transition zone between the grassland and the more arid area. And then it gets definitely more deserty, if you will. I wouldn't call it pure desert, but it's definitely deserty and definitely barren. When I first came through in 2005, I actually was not able to get a radio station or cell service or anything out here. Since then, I was pleasantly surprised that that's changed. There was actually some radio stations and cell services were pretty good. At one point, I was getting really low on gas. That was down to just around a quarter of a tank. I don't like to get below half a tank when I'm out in the middle of nowhere like this. The radio started to make some weird noises, and it was like, what happened was like a scene out of some alien abduction movie or some horror flick or something like that. Happened right here in, I think it's this area right here, in Newkirk.
In a quarter mile, merge onto I-40 West. 600 feet, turn left onto I-40 Frontage Road. Take the next left onto I-40 Frontage Road.
Was able to get gas down here in Santa Rosa, and here's a pic from that. Here's a view from Santa Rosa. Definitely I would call it a high desert type of an area. Not much out here. If you're looking to get away from everything, this would probably be a good place. I just wouldn't be able to stay on the drive to get to anywhere. It would kill me. So in summary, the stars of the show on this road trip were bringfido.com. See the link below. Every town I rolled into, I would pull up the website and I'd find a place to stay. Not just a dog-friendly place, but a big dog-friendly place. Stella and Chewy's website locator was also a big help. I could search for places that sold frozen raw dog food along my route. For a 3 to 5 day trip, I can carry enough frozen. Passing that 4 to 5 day mark pushes you past that limit of what you can hold frozen for 4 to 5 days, especially if you're working with a cooler and ice. Adventure Pets in Mandeville, Louisiana, and Nature's Emporium in Roanoke, Virginia. I could not have found those without Stella and Chewy's website. If you're looking to get out of a major metropolitan area and get away from HOAs and problem children, the problem children being those that destroy a place with their HOAs, regulations, and wealth redistribution, those that can't assimilate. Those same problem children, when they can't stand it where they're currently living, they decide to move on and bring the same policies and problems and destroy a new place. If you're looking for someplace rural, far from the problems in the metro areas, and you just want to be around other like-minded folks, there are places out there, but you just have to get out there to find them. If, like me, you're living in a major metropolitan area and watching it go to hell and wanting to relocate, after a while you start to wonder if you are the crazy one. The road trip was so refreshing to see firsthand and meet normal, common-sense people. It confirms that I'm not crazy. What's going on around me is, and the problem children are the crazy ones. It confirmed how far off the media and social media and all the conditioning and indoctrination that we're barraged with constantly is in fact in the minority. My potential relocation areas have all been taken off my list in these 17 states, unfortunately. I did find several areas to visit and explore in the future. Southeast Arizona between Wilcox and Benson, the Chiricahuas in Arizona, West Texas between Fort Stockton and the outskirts of San Antonio, Mississippi, Alabama, northern North Carolina from Statesville north up to Virginia, from the North Carolina-Virginia border up to the outskirts of Roanoke, also in Virginia, Arlington and points west, Kentucky was a very pleasant surprise between Elizabethtown and points to the south and west. Finally, the Ozarks. It was everything I expected it to be. These are all the types of places I'm looking to relocate, but I fear they are on borrowed time. Currently, all of those places that are rural and common sense prevails. My main concern that removes them from the potential relocation list is that they are all islands of common sense. The horde is pounding at the door. They are migrating, they're spreading, and they're bringing their problems that they are escaping. The infestation is spreading. It's just a matter of time until those pockets are overrun also. It may not be for 5, 10, or 15 years, but I fear they are doomed. My search for potential relocation sites has been refreshed and invigorated from what I found out there, those pockets of common sense. It was also a big help to be able to visit those 17 states firsthand. With those 17 states off my list, I can refocus my efforts. If you're also out there looking for potential relocation sites, I hope that you find this helpful, and I wish you the best luck in your search.
Well, there you go, and thank you for watching.